Hey everyone, Wazoo here, and this is the second video in the ASCII RPG Raylib series. Yeah, so if you remember at the end of part one, we put a basic window together and we can move our little player guy around. We've got different types of terrain showing up and we can't move into the mountains. So in this video, what we're going to do is just go into a basic combat mode when we encounter a monster tile. All right, pretty cool. I think this will be pretty exciting. So let's jump into it. So back in our project. And if you don't have the source yet, just grab it from the GitHub repository in the description down below. And I'm going to try and use tags to separate the different source files in between videos. So if you want to use the exact same code that I'm using in the video, then look for the tag, the appropriate tag on the GitHub repository. Otherwise, just pull down, the regular main branch and do whatever you want. All right, so in map.c, what we're going to do is we're going to add a new tile and we'll just call it capital M, and that'll be where our monster is. Okay, and then back in our project.h, we're going to add a state struct. Okay, and it will handle either the map, which is going to need to change, and combat. We will call this game state. And we'll declare it right here as well in an extern. Okay. And then what we're going to do in the map.c, I forgot to update that in our get tile color. If we're going to be, if we find the M tile, then we're going to return a bright green. So basically like an orc. That's how I'm thinking of it. And then back in game.c, under draw player, we're going to add a new one called draw combat screen. Actually, what I'm going to do is create a combat.c file. I think there'll be enough there to warrant putting it in its own source file. And it might make it easier to extend later on. Okay, so combat.c, include project.h. And we are going to, we'll flesh it out here and then we'll declare it. Cut and paste it into our project.h. Combat.c. Okay, draw a combat screen. All right. So first what we're going to do is draw some basic rectangles at 40/40, a width of 400 and a height of 200 in a dark gray color. Then we're going to draw a border around it using draw rectangle lines. So X and Y of 40/40, and then a width of 400, a height of 200, and a white border. Okay, next we're going to draw some text, and it'll just be combat. And we'll position it at X and Y of 60, font size of 24, and red color. And then some more text. You encountered a monster. An X position of 60, a Y of 100, font size of 20, and we'll use white for the color. And then let's give some basic actions that you can take as a player. So you can A for attack, D for defend, and F for flee. And let's position that at 60, and then a Y coordinate of 140, a font size of 20, And let's do those in light gray. Okay. So we've got a combat screen. And then in the update section, okay, so right here, what we're going to do is grab the next tile. Okay, we're going to just declare it here. I think that's what we'll do. And then switch game state. So if we are in the map, state, combat, break. Okay, so if we're in map mode, then we should be allowed to move around. So let's move our player movement stuff into the map mode there. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we are going to save our tile. Well, not save our tile, but just grab where the tile that our player is currently on after we update it. So map player.y and player.x after the movement code. And so if next tile equals M, then jump into combat mode. So game state equals state combat. Okay. And then if we are in a state combat, so if we hit A, we want to attack. So is key rest key.a or key underscore A. So far we're always winning. So game state, we return back to state map, and we remove the M from the map. So after we're assuming that we've killed the monster, so now we remove the M from the overall game map. So when we return, the monster is no longer there. Otherwise, if we flee, we're going to lose. Well, we flee. I mean, we don't, yeah, well, I mean, I guess we could lose. Game state equals state map. So return to the state map. Okay, and then back in our game loop here, in game draw. Okay, so let's also update the draw code to render depending on where we are. So let's switch game state, and then case state map. We want to do all of our origin stuff, draw map, draw player. Case state combat. We want to draw the combat screen. Okay, let's see if this works. Oh, I forgot to declare it up here. Game state, game state. Okay, and on startup, let's set game state to be state map. Oh, it's an enum, not a struct. Okay, fix that little bug. All right, so we've got our player. We've got the little M there. And we flip into the combat screen. Combat. You encountered a monster. Attack, defend, or flee. Okay, so we can't defend or anything like that at the moment. Let's attack. And we win, and we see the monster's gone. Okay, let's rerun it again. And let's try to flee. And let's try to flee. And let's try to flee. Okay, so I see what the problem is. Or I think I know what the problem is. So the problem is when we try to flee, we're returning to the map state, but then because our tile is right on top of the map of the monster tile, then it's coming back into the logic where we switch to combat because the tile is already M for monster. So how do we fix this? All right. So before we get into this in the game update, before we get into this loop, let's declare a world position X. We could also call this map position X and world position Y. And then what we do is when we flip to combat, we save equals player.x and then world position underscore Y equals player.y. And then if we flee, all we have to do is return we do this. We put this section here before the player movement. So before we update the player based on the key press, we save the current X and Y into world position X and Y. And then down here, if we flee, we restore the player.x to be the world position X and player.y equals world position Y. So we swap them back. And that way, when we return back to the map screen, we are in the square that we were, in the tile that we were before we did the combat. So right here, this is where we are. And then if we try and move down, combat, let's flee, and we return back where we were. Okay. Attack, boom, monster dead. Okay. And that is all I'm going to tackle in this short little video. This is part 2 of this whole series where we are just adding in some basic combat screens. Well, one screen, basic combat screen. So we'll add some more to this in our next video. If you like what you saw, thumbs up the video, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one, everyone. Peace out.